Hello, everybody. Right, I'm going to cut to the logo. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gaz Williams Show. Yes, thank you so much for coming back. I'm going to introduce our lovely guest, Mr. Christopher Calcutt, or otherwise known as Calc, and Calc from Novation. Here he is. Yes.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Hey, we made it. We made it. Hooray.
We made it. Yeah. I'm not going to get boring.
That was a trial by fire.
Yeah, annoying. I'm so sorry, but I'm really thankful to our lovely chat room for being so loyal and for keeping the fire burning. But because this is going to be a lot of fun, and now we're back on track, we're going to get into the good stuff, the stuff that I was teasing earlier with my nightmare ambience, further investigations into nightmare ambience. That's my genre I've decided that I work in now, is nightmare ambience. So hence the,
Well, at least it's not nightmare ambulance. That would be even worse. But yeah.
No, but in order to make this work, something that is pretty cool is I can put you. I reckon this will work.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you hearing that back? The effect in your voice.
Oh yes, Volante Calc. Wow, that's amazing. I've always wanted to have a play around with one of those things. They look incredible. And one of my mates has got one, and he swears by it. So,
right.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be Volante'd.
Great. But also that does mean that I can do mean things with the Eventide as well. Let's try that. Let's put a banjo strum on your voice.
Are you gonna... Oh, please do. I mean, it's been a while since I've played the tenor banjo.
Oh, yes, endless joy.
Brilliant.
I'm jealous. My mic isn't going through that. Although I can do this.
I can do this. I can do that.
Yeah.
Or I can.
Oh yes. Yeah. I think between us we've got a new avant-garde kind of vocal a cappella group going.
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
So let's let's do a little bit of introductions then properly then. So we call you
cool.
We call you Calc, obviously being Mr. Chris Calcutt. We can see where that came from. But you've been with Novation quite a while now. How long have you been with Novation for?
Yeah, I've been now with Focusrite Novation for 8 years, and yeah, 8 pretty much glorious years. I have to say, I've had a lot of fun there in that time. There's a lot of there's been quite a lot of changes there. I think when I started, I think the company was about like maybe 90 people, something like that, and now it's way in excess of 250. I think.
Oh wow,
it's
amazing!
Really grown massively.
But I mean,
yeah. So it's but it's been amazing.
I mean, there have been some. I mean, what's brilliant with Novation? I mean, just to backtrack on like Novation, I have mentioned this before. Novation first came onto my radar way back when I had my little Yamaha QI20, which was the universe to me. I loved that thing. And the first product I ever saw that was kind of designed, well, that was a Novation product, was a little mini keyboard that was designed for that, so you could kind of plonk it in.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that was the MM10.
Right. And is that the first official
the MM10,
Novation?
which was the very first Novation product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that was number 1, if you like. And what's quite bizarre about that is it was a controller keyboard when controller keyboards weren't really actually a thing as well.
That's right.
Which is kind of mad because it was designed for a very specific sequencer.
Yeah.
For the QI10.
The QI10, in fact, yeah.
A guy called Ian Janaway started that company. Well, started Novation. I think he's from Oxford. And he got one of these QI10s, loved the way it was, the great sequencing on it and stuff like that, but just needed a bit more of a musicality, kind of a musical instrument feeling to it. So yeah, designed the MM10 and built that. And yeah, it was dedicated to the QY10.
QY10.
Yeah, but as I say, it's kind of weird, really, because we live in an age of controllers
Yes.
everywhere, and this is back when people
Yeah.
weren't making music on the computer, so there was no
90,
need for controllers back then. But
91.
actually, it
Yeah.
was one of the first controllers about.
Yeah. My brother, I should
So yeah.
clarify, my brother had the QI10 before me, and then I had the QI20. So yes,
Yeah.
did it ever fit the QI20? Because the QI20 was quite a bit fatter than the QI10.
Oh, well, I mean, I have to be quite honest. Have I seen? No, I have seen an MM10. I think there's one over at the office. But
so-
I've never used an MM10. Put it that way. I've never kind of got my hands dirty with it, so I wouldn't know.
I have like a kind of longing for a QI20. I might even get one. I mean, because the QI20 was superseded by some other ones in the little QY range throughout the 1990s, and these were battery-powered portable sequencers with onboard sounds. So you could plug, it was like a kind of workstation.
Do you remember those fellas? Yeah.
A workstation and as a Walkman,
Yeah,
like a
absolutely.
Walkman workstation, and I found it a really liberating, amazing tool. So, yeah. Anyway, I digress.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you think about it. Everybody, wants sequences. I want sequences today, and that's pretty much exactly what that was. And what I do remember, I think it was called the SU10.
That's right.
I think that's what it was called, but
The
it was
SU10.
the same format.
Yep.
But it's a little sampler.
That's the one.
And it also had a little kind of ribbon controller on it as well. And yeah, I remember I was working for a music retailer up in the northwest where I'm originally from, and we got one of those things. And yeah, oh god, yeah, you've just made me remember something. I used to work when I started. My very first job was working for it's a company called Dawson's Music. Sadly, it's not about now.
Dawson's is not about. Dawson's gone now, is it?
They were. No, sadly, no. They're one of the ones that, went away. I think at the beginning of the year, maybe. I mean, it was,
Wow.
It's a real shame that because obviously it'd been there for a long, long time. That
Yeah.
company, and it's gone the way of sadly so many at the moment. But yeah. Anyway, they were in charge of a product called the MIDI Creator, and the MIDI Creator was a gesture to MIDI controller, and it's primarily going into sort of special needs areas. And it was kind of it was a switch to MIDI converter, and I remember I used to use the SC7 Roland sound canvas.
Oh yeah.
And after sort of 2 years on the road with that, I was just like, oh man, this is so boring. And then Yamaha brought out this little sampler. And I thought, well, why that's got MIDI on it? Why don't we make gestures with audio recordings instead? And yeah, that really opened up a lot of great possibilities.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, that was a nice little memory. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that.
Oh, cool. No, but that's good though. That also gives us a little bit of background as well. I seem to remember you telling me that
that was my first job.
did. You come from a musical household though, don't you? Is it with music teacher parents or something like that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I guess the path was already sort of laid out for me before I was given any choice, I suppose. Yeah, both mum and dad were music teachers, so I guess it was the natural it was the natural thing to do. So yeah, the usual sort of story, I guess, for a lot of people, like piano lessons at a tender age. I think it was 3 when I had my first piano lesson. Oddly enough, keyboard is probably the instrument I'm the worst at playing still. I never really kind of made the grade with that, but it was the one I was playing the longest. But then I got into playing. Well, trombone was my instrument,
Oh,
and
glorious
actually that's what I went
instrument.
to university for, to study trombone.
oh wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Sadly, I don't play it too much these days, but yeah, trombone was kind of the first thing. And
You haven't got one
so,
there. You haven't got one
when
there.
I was now those.
Sorry.
I've got a trombone. Yeah, occasionally get it out and blow it for about 5 minutes, and then my lips collapse because they're just completely out of shape.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, it's not a pretty sight. Yeah. So but when I was about 12, I remember I was studying the Rodriguez guitar concerto, the Concerto de Aranjuez, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Really beautiful piece of classical guitar music.
Yeah.
I thought I really would love to play the guitar. So again, like so many people, sort of picked up the guitar. But the difference with the guitar was that was the instrument that I wanted to learn. That was my choice. And so for some reason, I guess probably, well, because I was probably so into Iron Maiden at the time, just sort of jamming along to Number of the Beast and and Killers and Iron Maiden, and yeah, the guitar became what I would consider probably my best instrument in terms of playability. But once again, I haven't really touched that now for years. But yeah, so that is it. As I say, it was a path that was kind of it was already kind of presented. It was like, yeah, you're not really going to do much else, are you, Chris? So yeah, went to Huddersfield University. I did trombone and composition as well. That was actually I majored in composition, and yeah, I had a blast there. It was really kind of quite a free thinking kind of degree, really, because they're very big on contemporary music. So whilst I'd studied a load of Bach kind of chorales and all the usual kind of sort of GCSE A-level music kind of stuff, I suddenly got there and they were like, right, go and write whatever you want for whatever instruments you want and just go crazy. So that was a lot of fun, I have to say.
Great.
Yeah.
So this,
but even back then, Well, sorry, Katak. Yeah. You see, we've got two live streamers on, and we kind of both. If you forgive me for saying this, both motor mouths, I guess.
No, it's great. It's great.
I mean that with the best, the best of intentions, mate.
But I'm just going to cut in a little bit though, just to give a little bit of taste. Let's cast your mind back to the 16-year-old Chris Calcutt. What would be the ultimate album to the 16-year-old?
16 years old. Oh, okay. I think there are two that stand out there. The first one is the Stone Roses.
Yeah.
And I bought the Stone Roses' first album the day it came out from Piccadilly Records in Manchester. And on that day, I also bought another record, which I think was probably one of the most important records I ever bought, and that was Playing with Fire by Spaceman 3. And that just kind of, I mean, I was just all about guitars back then. Fuzz pedals, tremolos, wah-wahs, that was it pretty much. And and those were two, I guess, really quite key albums for me. In fact, I think out of those two, I think Playing with Fire, Spaceman 3 is probably the most important, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, great answer. So let's jump forward 10 years then from that point.
26.
Yeah, 26.
Okay.
What would be the thing? The thing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I had my time with the kind of the shoegazing, droney, psych rock stuff. And out of the back of that, I think probably the most important album around about that age would have been, Richard D. James album, Aphex Twin.
Yeah.
That was just, I don't know. I mean, I'd listened to the other stuff that he'd done around that time, well, before that as well. But something about the RDJ album is just. There's just some beautiful music on that, and that was where I was at back then.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, so it was quite a change from the 16-year-old me, but I have to say that was probably another seminal album for me there.
So let's fast forward another 10 years then and see where we end up.
36. I don't remember that.
The classic year. The classic age.
A bit of a crazy time. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people have their crazy time, in the sort of the 20s and what have you. No, for me it was the 30s. Let's see. Well, I think when I was 36, I think albums had kind of gone at that point, I guess. And it was really just kind of, I was just consuming music in the way that a lot of people do today. And it was kind of, I suppose, tracks. I was quite into, kind of quite a lot of house music. And I think probably, if I was to think of a track from that time, I reckon it would be a track called Una Penna by Martin Stimming. And that is just, again, it's just such a clever track. It's using an old, I think it's a Portuguese kind of a ballad where a lady singing this sort of ballad song. I can't quite remember the details of that sample, but yeah, that was just that made me feel very warm inside. But yeah, around about that time, uh, well, I'd met my wife just a couple of years before, and she's a bit younger than I am, so I kind of had my quarter life, midlife crisis in my 30s, and yeah, I was clubbing it big time.
So
A lot more than I did when I was younger. I mean, I did when I was younger, but certainly in the 30s, yeah.
how long have you been in Brighton then?
Yeah.
Because I mean, Brighton is a party town, isn't it?
Wow, that's yeah. Yeah, absolutely. About 12 years I've been down here now, I think. Yeah, I moved down from Manchester about 12 years ago.
Well, mind
something
you,
like that.
Manchester is a
So
party.
yeah, I would have been 36 down here.
Manchester is a party town too, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bristol is a party town.
Oh, it definitely is.
They
And
are
I had a lot
actually.
of parties up there
Those
as
three,
well.
those three
I had
are
a lot of
definitely
parties up there as well, I have to say. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, no, this is brilliant because that was really nice because that leads me really to what I wanted to sort of ask you next, really, which is about your muse, your kind of musical inspirations. And now you have got behind you, obviously the 2600.
Okay.
In
Yeah,
my
the interesting stuff over
favorite
there.
livery.
Yeah.
And how nice it goes with the Pulsar 23 as well. The orange is
Oh,
quite...
indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's that's why I went for the orange pulsar, to be honest. I thought, yeah, that's going to sit nicely directly under the ARP. So yeah. The 2600, that's been with me for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. From when I was a kid.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's astonishing.
Yeah. Well, my dad. My dad bought that in 1979.
You are kidding.
So, yeah, my dad.
So that beast has been in your life, most of your life.
Yeah, yeah. When I was 5 years old and I was playing on that thing. Yeah. Now I've got to be a bit careful here because it's one of those, again, quite common stories for this type of gear. But my dad's been retired for years and years now, and I think the music service has been disbanded. So I'm going to put it out there. I've always said I would never tell this story, but my dad was head of a music service in Manchester, and in the late 70s and early 80s, they were having a push on music tech. It was called music tech back then, as it is today, I guess, And of course, it was quite a different landscape then. So my dad was kind of getting these reel-to-reel tape machines, buying synthesizers and that sort of stuff. And I could not wait for summer holidays because he'd bring it all home because he had no idea how to use the stuff. I mean, he's a trombone player as well, and he had no idea how to use it. So he'd bring it home over the summer with a view to kind of learning how to use these instruments. But of course, I was just like, let me play on it. So I spent my summer holidays just noodling around on an ARP. I didn't have a bloody clue what I was doing with it. To be perfectly honest, a lot of the time today, I'm still scratching my head like, what's going on here? But
did you have a keyboard attached?
Yeah, so
did you have a keyboard attached?
Yeah, I've got the keyboard as well. Yeah, I do have the keyboard. That's actually up on my loft, I think, at the moment, and it's a great keyboard, but it's big and chunky, and space is a bit of a premium in this room, really. So it's kind of. Yeah, so that's upstairs, but I do have the keyboard for it. Today I sequence it with the Novation SL. I use the SL a lot. That's probably my go-to kind of medium of recording of choice, I guess, in a way, or certainly writing.
That is cool. Because I mean,
everything's hardware for me.
Without talking too much shop, the 1.4 update for the SL. Is mega though, isn't it? It's a giant update.
Yeah.
If you've been snooping around it, the musicality. I mean, I thought it was always a really excellent tool, but that was the thing that just sort of pushed it over the edge for me. The 1.4 stuff. I mean, it's that thing about doing intelligent key changes and being able to have things move. Across all different tracks.
Yeah, I think the thing with the SL is, I mean, for me, the real joy is it's actually a super powerful sequencer, and it's attached to a keyboard. And it's it's a kind of a master keyboard, but you decide what pieces, what instruments you're going to sequence with it. You've got these 64 templates that you can create, and so I've got pretty much everything in this room mapped. So if I want the Summit, I'll just dial in the Summit, and here I'm playing it. If I want the Preen FM, I've got the Preen FM here. Just dial that in, and I'm playing that. If I want the Yamaha CP, it's there. And so it really is. It's a bit like, if you're working in Ableton or any of your other DAWs, go into your plugins kind of folder and say, okay, now I want to start to sequence. Why not? The Auto BAM reverb. Load it in, and then you can start to, and start to do that. So it's a really liberating thing. It genuinely is. It's the centerpiece of all of this room. And with the 1.4, I think, there was... there was one arpeggiator on it up until that point, which, is okay, but obviously there are 8 independent tracks there. So we got to thinking, well, a lot of people were asking about, could we get more arpeggiators? So we got to thinking about it and seeing what we could do. And we thought, maybe we could put 2 arpeggiators in, or, well, if we're doing that work, maybe we could see if it's feasible for 8. And I mean, I've told some absolute geniuses because, they said, oh, all right, then we'll go and try. And came back, it's like, okay, yeah, there's 8 arpeggiators now. It's like, bloody hell, how have you done that?
I love lots of arpeggiators.
I have to say, I often, yeah, absolutely. I often, I'm kind of often a face kind of demonstrating this product, but I'm just like a tiny piece in this whole cog. There are some absolute genuine geniuses behind a lot of this stuff that's going on. And, I'm going to say this. I don't know if I should, but I will do. Obviously, in today's world, there's a lot of people say, oh, it's only a firmware upgrade. How hard can it be? It's only a firmware upgrade. Believe you me, a firmware upgrade is a lot of work. It's a lot of time. And it's not just, it's not just kind of programming up a new feature. It's making sure that that doesn't break all the other features that are already in existence as well. So, we have this thing called regression testing. You've always got to make sure that if you add a new feature, that's just not going to affect or, to the detriment the other aspects.
SLs, in their previous incarnation, in the Marks 1 and 2, they didn't have this sequencer side to them. But presumably, though, the market, for the original ones, that you see them a lot on the road. And have for years in people's touring. It's got
the SL Mark II described as the Porsche, the Porsche of controllers. I always like that one.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I've seen them a lot on the road, like a lot, as just sort of it's almost like one of the default kind of controller keyboards. The reason why I'm saying that though is by adding a lot of additional complexity into the product line, because it's not, it's a remarkably different machine, isn't it, from the previous generations? It can be a center of your studio.
Totally, yeah.
But of course, though, it's still got to be able to function as an SL controller and be super bulletproof, reliable as well. All doing its original job. Yeah, because you don't want to mess that up. I mean, you don't want to mess that market up, having cultivated it for years as well.
No, well, we've seen a big change in the way that people are approaching making electronic music. It's a huge change in the past 5 or 6 years. Things like I guess like the Mini Brute, the Bass Station 2. All of these things suddenly brought Volkers, of course, as well. All of these things brought everybody's well, not everybody's, but brought a lot of people's attention back to these little boxes, these dedicated things for making music with, and kind of took a little bit of the focus away from the DAW.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of grown exponentially now, of course. And, as I say, I'm exclusively hardware. I'm woeful in software these days. As soon as I kind of open up Ableton, I'm scratching my head. It's like, well, how do I do that again? What do I do? So the SL, of course, it had to kind of yeah, I really had to speak to pretty much everybody, and that's a large undertaking, really.
Yeah.
You know, it had to be a great software controller, but equally we were ambitious to say no, we want it to be an 8-track sequencer as well, and we want to give it, you know, each track 8 lanes of automation. We want to give, you know, you give you 64 template spaces so you can kind of preload it with all your favorite gear and just dial it up as and when you want. You know, there was there's a lot of things it can do. And I mean, obviously, you know, this live stream isn't just about the Novation SL Mark III.
No,
but I have to say, it is a yeah, it's one of my favourite things, I think.
Yeah, no, it's really cool.
Easily,
it's really cool. It's just it's one of those things, isn't it? That if you already owned it and then that update come out, then it's just what great news.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's important as well. Again, we live in times where, you know, firmware updates are kind of almost the norm now and kind of almost expected, and that's quite a difficult path to tread, I would say.
Yeah.
Because you're damned if you do, and sometimes you're damned if you don't.
Yes.
No, always you're damned if you don't, but sometimes you're damned if you do as well. But I think for me, the growth of a product like that and its lifespan, for being quite, you know, blatant about it, quite candid about it, it's good for business because it gives us a chance to talk about the products again and just remind people, you know, hey, look, there's an SL here, now it can do all of this stuff. So it's good from the business point of view. But equally, it's really fantastic from the user's point of view. And I think, you know, that kind of win-win, that cycle of winning.
Yeah, but you know, it's not win. It's not win.
It's just really valuable.
It's not win-win for everyone, though. It's win-win-lose for people like me. Because I could do like a review of the original circuit, and then that review. You know, if you get a hold of a circuit and then watch that original review, you'd go. That guy, he's such an idiot. Of course he can do this. Of course he can do that. So it makes me look like a twat then, you see.
I'm really sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't think about that in this win-win story.
You know, when we're doing those reviews, maybe when we're doing those reviews, you just say, like, this is today's firmware. This is perhaps not what it'll be in 4 years. You know. But then again, you know, as I say, you're damned if you do, because... You know, it might well be that actually there's no more kind of processing space, there's no more memory in that product. Maybe it's capacity, and there's no more, you know,
That's it.
Well, there's no, you can't take it any further. You know, there has to come a point, you know, with products where it's kind of like, okay, we've done pretty much everything we could possibly do with this now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the circuit, you know, if the circuit doesn't ever receive anything more than what's been achieved with it. Through the different updates, I think that is, you know, that was the gift that kept giving. That was, you know, really like that.
I think you're right. I mean, that's kind of where we learn about this kind of, you know, the value to everybody. You know, the win-win value to this, because
win-win-lose, win-win-lose.
Win-win-lose, sorry, Gaz. Yeah, Gaz, I'm classing you as a tiny little niche there, but yes, I understand, I'm sorry. But, I mean, being brutally honest, I think when Circuit did get released, it was very prescriptive. You know, you only had the sounds that were on there.
Yeah.
You only had the samples that we'd given you on there as well.
Yeah.
And that's going to wear thin pretty quickly, I think. So I think it was quite right for people to say, look, you know, it'd be amazing if we could have a synth editor for this, so we can access the engine, we can make our own patches. It would be great if we could add our own samples to it. And as soon as we did that, we worked really hard, because again, it's not just a case of saying, oh, okay, there you go, you can put your own samples in there. Of course, we had the technology and the wherewithal to do that when we were developing it. How else did we get the samples on there? But you've got to spend time on the user interface. You've got to make it the right thing for the customers as well. And, you know, if we gave people the opportunity to add their own samples, but it was an absolute pig to do that, nobody's going to, you know, thank you for that, you know. And so, you know, there's a lot of things to consider with firmware updates.
The thing I wanted to say...
I'm all for them.
Yeah, I'm yeah, as I say,
Well, I was going to say, I'm known at work as a bit of a feature creeper, to be
I'm a
honest.
feature creeper.
You know, I'm always like knocking on the product team's door. It's like, can we make it do this? Can we make it do that? And sometimes I'm turned around and said, no, go away. But sometimes they're, oh, okay, yeah, we can take a look at seeing if we could do that. So yeah,
That's interesting because well, because Novation are a kind of slightly unusual company in that in a way they're legendary for making controllers. The Launchpad is probably sold, I don't know, has it sold 1 million? Did I see that once or something? A Launchpad?
oh, I think it's beyond that. I mean, it was that has been, you know, it is kind of almost the definitive Novation product, I guess, you know, out of everything that's been made.
Right. From a, but
Yeah,
so this is the point I was just going to make, though. So it's kind of interesting for a company to have this big reputation for, very on the money controllers. The Launchpad being a prime example, but the Synth Legacy of Novation is really special. I mean, I love seeing that the Base
yeah,
Station 2
it's
has
staggering. Yeah,
recently had a bit of love with that incredible update. That was another great update, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah,
that was pretty
yeah.
special.
I mean,
An AFX.
yeah. Again, you know, down to the geniuses at our place. I'll name check him, Matt Speed, Dr. Matt Speed. What a legend this guy is. I mean, of course, you know, you're quite right. The synth heritage, Chris Huggett, and I guess we'll probably have a little chat about Chris shortly. But you know, with things like, the AFX mode, that was Matt's work, and again, you know, AFX Twin, kind of got in touch. First thing he got in touch, he said, can we look at maybe adding micro tuning to base stations? So, okay, yeah, it's possible. So I think we built in a custom firmware for that, and gave it to him. But then we kind of thought, well, actually, we've got the firmware, you know, we've got the ability to do it. Why don't we sort of look into possibly doing that as an update? And alongside that, Base Station turned from being, you know, mono synth into paraphonic, and it got the micro tunings. And one of my ideas, I'm pleased about this. I think Matt will agree, but it's the retriggering envelopes.
Oh,
It's like, why don't we just kind of put a little looping envelopes on there? So yeah, so we did that as well, and that just really opened it up. And I mean, the amount of possibilities with the Base Station 2 is unbelievable. But then again, we did, you know, the AFX thing as a second update, and that was again, Richard James got in touch and said, I've got an idea, and we're like, okay, what's that? So well, and the idea was, I'd love to have a synthesizer where I can basically program a sound on each key. Says okay, and so once again, Matt went off and kind of scratched his head for a little while. Well, not too long, to be perfectly honest, but came back. It's like, right, I think we've got it. And so AFX mode is basically, essentially, you've got 25 presets now, one for each key, and that just suddenly turns it into an amazing analog drum machine as well. Or, you know, but you can basically do whatever you want with it at that point.
yeah.
And yeah, and that product was, I think, well, it's now, yeah, God, it's 7 years old.
7 years old.
My second
And then
year.
that amazing update sort of drops last year or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So 7 years down the line, it's like, yeah, I think we could do this.
That is.
But then there's other little things that are slightly
cool.
unsung as well. The Base Station's now a 3 oscillator mono because, I mean, I was quite surprised when I found out, but the sub oscillator in there is actually, or was always, shouldn't maybe say that, but was always just another oscillator. So we thought, well, why don't we just detach that, and then that can be an independent oscillator as well. And so, you know, it's now a 3 oscillator mono, or paraphonic, with this really crazy kind of notion of a different preset sound, or a different sound.
Yeah.
Not even a preset, really, just just a different sound on each of the keys. So it's a very, very interesting instrument. That very powerful. You know, there's a lot of scope for getting a lot of sounds out of it.
Because I was really interested in how Novation, as mentioned earlier, having them be on my radar from the very first product, and then remembering when the Base Station, the original Base Station, came out, which was in that small 25 key kind of cute little version, and then seeing how the synths got progressively more sophisticated until by the end of the 90s. Well, the K stations. What were the big ones? So the supernovas.
The Supernova, Supernova 2,
Supernova 2.
And all that sort of stuff,
And Novation then kind of withdrew from that synth market. And there was only...
Yeah, I mean, that was... Yeah.
Well, I was going to say...
Sorry, Gaz, I'm doing my...
No, it's good. They, it seemed that the focus then moved into kind of making controller keyboards and the X key, and then that led to the X station, which I think was a classic, a really fantastic product. And groundbreaking. I mean, it still is. In a way, very few things have kind of had the feature set of the X station, where you had a comprehensive controller keyboard, a virtual analog synth of considerable depth, 2 mic preamps, 2 on there, and a digital out, and was class compliant. So actually, when I was doing Sonic Touch all those years ago, I was trying to find the ultimate kind of keyboard to use with an iPad, and I kind of realised that it was using. You could, if you connected the iPad with the old bloody stinking clagnut to the X station, you had a controller keyboard, its own synth, an audio interface into your iPad, and a digital out. So you could put the digital out into, and there was very few things that could do that. And that was a product that was like kind of defunct by a number of years. So fair play.
Again, I mean, it's down to a fashion sort of thing in a way. I mean, you're quite right, because throughout the 90s, starting with the base station, and then moving on through the 90s, of course, we had all the Nova synths coming through. But at that time, and that was the time when this stuff, the 2600s was getting thrown into skips, hence why I have a 2600, because it was about to get skipped.
Oh, is that the end of the tape?
It was just it was just like, that's the bit I'm not allowed to tell anybody, so you didn't hear it here. So don't look at my dad anyway. But no, seriously, it was all sat in a cupboard, and then just thought, right, no, let's get rid of it. It's just taking up valuable space in the music centre. So skip it. So my dad had the foresight to say, Chris used to like playing with that when he was a kid. I'll see if there's any, see if he'll make it, give it a good home. And I'd like to think I have. But anyway, that was it. Mid 90s. Everybody was really just fascinated with the computer at that point. And VSTs, Cubase had brought out the VST standard.
Yeah. And,
I mean, myself at that time as well, I was like, well, why would I want a room full of boxes when I could just have a laptop and do everything there, And so, really, I guess, I mean, I wasn't obviously around with Novation back at that time, but I've heard a few people say that, the market for synths at that point just kind of dropped out.
Yeah.
And so, to stay afloat as a business, you've got to kind of adapt. You've got to see what's cooking, what's right. And so controller keyboards became the kind of the thing. I mean, so that's why that really rich kind of heritage of synthesizers disappeared for a good number of years, really. Although that said, to be fair, the Ultranova sort of came along pretty much soon after Focusrite sort of took over Novation as a business. And then, of course, after that, I think it was Base Station, which was a few years after that, then Mini Nova. And then, we just kind of, I guess, we kind of hit our stride a little bit with the synth side of things, because, obviously we've always worked with Chris Huggett. He's kind of an absolute legend, this guy. He's such a wonderful chap.
Should we just?
I think of him as a good friend, as well. He's a really, really lovely chap.
Let's just do a brief history.
Yeah, go on, Gaz.
Well, I mean, I can see how far I can get with it, but just because it's really nice seeing him become.
I'll have a quick vape while you do that. Yeah.
Well, as far as I know, is his first commercial synth the Wasp? Was that his first?
Yeah. Yeah, 78 it was. And I have quite a funny story about that as well.
Okay.
A weird connection. Yeah, but you're quite right. The Electronic Dream Plant Wasp. Adrian Wagner was the guy who kind of started Electronic Dream Plant. And he brought a young Chris Huggett in to be kind of the main engineer to kind of design the synth. And this took place. Right, my dad's getting a lot of time on this podcast. He'll be very chuffed, but he'll be very upset with me for having divulged that story. But anyway, my dad grew up in Oxford before he moved up to Manchester and met my mum, etc., etc. And he grew up in a tiny, tiny hamlet called Coombe, right outside of Woodstock. And the Electronic Dream Plant, not factory, I mean, it was just basically like a big house that they worked from, was in Coombe. So when I was, God, 4 years old, 5 years old, running around in my grand's garden in a pair of shorts, just about, I don't know, a few hundred yards down the road, Chris Huggett was there making the Summit. Not the, no, hang on, beg your pardon, no, that was a bit premature. They're making the Wasp for EDP.
Wow.
And it was just such a nice little kind of thing that we kind of both realised. It's like, wow. So a few years ago, Chris and I went over to Coombe. My gran had passed away by then, so that her house had kind of been, sold on and stuff like that. But we went and we had a reminiscence day, and so we went. I went to see my gran's house where I used to play, and then we drove up to a place called Red Gables where he was making the Wasp for EDP at the time. And so it's pretty mad to think that all those years ago, I mean, what's 78? That's bloody hell, 42 years ago. Oh dear. But 42 years ago, we were just sort of, within the same vicinity.
Nice.
And to think that, we've come into this sort of this time now, and we're kind of like doing a bit of work together like this. It's pretty mad. But yeah, so
after,
sorry, I kind of sidetracked
no,
your history of Novation there.
Well,
but yes, Chris Huggett's first commercial synth was the Wasp. Yeah.
Now, the Oscar is. I don't know what is in the gaps. So I know the Nat. I don't know what else there is.
No, well, okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously EDP did a number of things. They did a Nat. They did a thing called the Spider, which I think was the sequencer. They did a Wasp Deluxe as well, which was the kind of the bigger version. In a wooden cabinet, wooden sort of case and that sort of thing. And yeah, they went on for a few years, but yeah, eventually Chris parted ways with the EDP and kind of thought, well, what can I do? I have a feeling he might have gone fixing washing machines or something like that. I might be wrong there. But I have a feeling he kind of did a bit of kind of work in terms of, sort of electronic engineering on kind of white goods, should we say?
Yeah.
And then, but then kind of started up with his own company, the Oxford Synth Company, and the product that he made there was the Oscar. And again, that was, I mean, that's just such a classic, iconic instrument now. I think, and and that became. Yeah, it was again a great success. I mean, that's I guess down to thanks to the sort of likes of Ultravox and those sorts of guys, kind of, sort of taking it on board and at that time.
Yeah.
What year? But again, I think it's just testimony to Chris's genius.
What year did the Oscar come out?
You've got me there. I
thought it was like later in the 80s, 85, but it's earlier, is it?
I should know this. I should know this.
Chat room. This is where the chat room comes.
But I don't think I do. I think it's possibly 85. I don't know. It's certainly kind of the first half of the 80s. I definitely should know that, and I'm pretty certain at one point in my life I did know that, but it's just gone at this point. But certainly, the first half of the 80s.
So, But this is the thing, isn't it? Then that the 70s, as in albeit towards the end though, with Wasp, and then the 80s with the Oscar, and then the 90s, I guess, the base stations and the Novas. That he's had an influence across all of those decades.
Yeah, indeed.
So
yeah,
84 to 85. 84 to 85. 84 to 85.
Oh, okay,
the
there it is.
Sorry, just cut it in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's quite right. I did when you said 85. I thought that sounds about right. I think, but But you're quite right, though. Chris has been there with a lot. Oh, hello.
Hello. That's the moment everyone waits for. There we go.
Oh, okay. There we go.
God, time is flying.
So, yeah, no, Chris has been doing, yeah, but he's been there from, from very early days, obviously not quite as early as Mr. Moog and, and those guys, but certainly from, yeah, throughout a long, long time. But the thing about Chris is he's always doing innovative stuff, I think. The Wasp, its kind of unique little point was the fact it was the first synth under £200, so it, like that in itself, to do sort of an exercise where you could get an instrument for that sort of price was kind of unheard of at that point. Then the Oscar, I mean, he did such clever things with that as well. I mean, he had a split filter in there with separation. He had a bit of additive stuff as well, and just, yeah, I mean, well, quite an interesting design as well.
But like,
yeah.
But fast forwarding.
But then into like the.
Oh, yeah. Carry on.
I was going to say in through the 90s with the Nova stuff as well. That was really pushing the virtual analog stuff into really. They were really powerful machines. A lot of multi-timbrality in there, but again, it's kind of. They were high end. They were high prices, I guess, at that time as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, really quite fascinating and innovative stuff. But then you move into into our kind of current era, and we get things like the base station, which was analog. We kind of went back to that analog world, base station, with obviously digital control, because that was something that was it's really valuable. I think you've got the analog sound, but you've got the ability to control it digitally. Use all that sort of thing, so is really useful. But then come up to kind of the more current times with the Peak, and then latterly the Summit. And I reckon I'm going to stick my neck out here, and this might sound a bit. You got to remember, I am biased. I work at Novation, but I think that Chris's approach to working on the FPGA was initially kind of a sort of, I wonder if I could do this. And I mean, obviously, I think it's disappeared now, and thankfully so. But the analog and digital kind of arguments, they were rife even 6-7 years ago. We had a lot of kind of that, and I have to say, at some points, I was that snob as well.
Yeah.
But with Chris's approach to using the FPGA processor, it was really just about getting some absolutely incredible resolution out of these digital oscillators. And traditionally in a digital synth, you'll have a DSP processor and then your DAC after it, so your digital analog converter, and they'll be running at kind of 44.1 often, 48, 96 or something like that. There's oversampling that can be added into that too.
Yeah.
But the FPGA
it's off the
basically
scale,
allowed. Yeah, well, it allowed Chris to be able to essentially use numerically controlled oscillators, but get them created at the speed of the processor, at the clock speed of the processor, which is 24 megahertz. So all of a sudden we had a sample rate of 24 million cycles a second. So that just suddenly kind of, in my opinion, just kind of dismissed that kind of digital analog argument in terms of oscillators, and I think just really kind of gave synthesizers a bit of a shot in the arm that perhaps. I think maybe, it was arguable, is perhaps a little bit overdue. And of course, after those oscillators, then it goes back into the analog world. So you still have the analog filter, which is basically kind of the essential analog part. That the amplifiers and also the distortion circuits in Summit and Peak are all analog as well.
Nice.
But those super high resolution oscillators, I think, I think they've set a bit of a precedent. And it was both really great to see, but also equally like, ooh, that's a bit too good, and it's not an Novation product. When we saw the Udo Super 6,
yes,
yes. And George, I believe, has gone kind of down a similar route there. He's using FPGAs for the generators, for the oscillators, and then with an analog back end after that.
Yeah.
So in one way, I was just like, yes, this is amazing. What Chris has done there is kind of set a precedent there for others to follow suit.
But is it? But I mean, with it, but with it called the Summit, we were talking about like his career, and then you get, he has some peaks, but then he's reached the summit.
Yeah.
It's like, where can he go after that? You see, it's got to go right to the. It's going to be called
That's
the
it.
pits.
We need to think of some great superlatives now, don't we?
I was going to say no. It's
it.
after the no. It's the plum.
Yeah,
the plummet. What about the plummet? A nice little sort of fat
I
little
really
synth.
hope the only way isn't down. I really do. No, absolutely. Mate, I've not kind of thought of it in that respect before. Maybe we've made a rod for our own back there. So answers on a postcard, please. But Ascension.
Right.
Have we had a synth called Ascension before?
Yeah. I think the plummet's got something about it, though. I think, for doing like pitch drops and sort of, what I want to see, though.
It would have to be. It would have to be a bass synth that plumbs the depths of the bass.
Yeah. So let's have a little look at some of the goodies in your room there, because I'm sure it's very
this allows me to do my fancy little camera change, I hope. So if I do this, yes, indeed.
Alrighty.
Now I'm going to step back because I'm going to show off a little bit here, because I've recently just had a little daughter, and that meant my old studio space, my old spare room, had to change. So I decided to come down here, which was where my wife painted from. So unfortunately, she has to do that in the living room now. But I brought all the gear down and got everything set up on this. In fact, got a really good mate to come and put this desk in and build these little shelving things here. And it's I'm really pleased with it. I was really nervous about coming down here because I was losing a lot of space. But it's pretty neat. And also I've got these kind of little riser things here, these little angle things. So that's this is where I sit and work, and there's you and me on the computer screen. But this stuff is all permanently set up here. So lots of nice bits and bobs here, all running through this desk, the Allen and Heath Z16.
No need.
R16, I beg your pardon. Yeah. And this was a game changer for me because.
Did you say the arse?
I used to sell these when I was at Dawson's.
The R16.
It's the R16. Yeah,
Arse.
Yeah, that's right.
ARSE.
This is the ZR16.
Oh, sorry.
No. R as in letter R.
Not the arse.
Yeah.
When you said the R16.
Not the R16. Oh. Yeah, the arse.
I thought it was the R16. Yeah. So I didn't know.
So,
sorry, cutting in.
Well, the thing that got me with this is this desk is a FireWire audio interface that allows 26 channels into the computer via FireWire. But of course, it's also It's 24 channel or analog mixer as well. So it's a basic analog mixer, but also each individual track can be fed into my computer as an individual track. So it's essentially, it just turns the computer into an inline tape machine.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how I do things. Well, in fact, to be fair, I don't even do it that way now. I just use it as an analog mixer and just record a stereo pair. I'm so lazy now. I really am. I mean, I don't produce. I just kind of play. I'm sort of. I don't need to produce. I'm not kind of chasing that kind of thing anymore. I'm just quite happy in the work that I do, and so this thing is amazing. Now, it's the second one I've had.
Yeah.
The first one sadly died, and I scratched my head. I looked at every possible option to give me the kind of workflow that I wanted, but thought, okay, maybe I can try an upgrade. I could not find a thing that would replace this, so I bought a second one. So if anybody wants to go at fixing an old analog, I can't speak, Allen and Heath ZR16 with a bust FireWire chip and also some dodgy summing to the mixer, let me know, because that's up on my loft and I need to get rid of that. But a brilliant desk. I love this to pieces.
Something I didn't know until.
So that's it.
Something I didn't know till the other day was the same kind of parent company that owns SSL owns Allen and Heath now.
Yeah.
So, or the other way around.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I was telling you my little story about near Woodstock.
Oh.
Near Woodstock, Coombe in Woodstock, where Chris was making the Wasp. The next town along, or not even town, sorry, little hamlet, village along was Stonesfield, and that's where SSL were based as well. So it's a real hotbed.
Gosh.
Yeah, a real hotbed. I don't know that they're there now, but yeah, it's kind of weird to think that this kind of really super rural kind of oldie worldy part of Oxford is
State of the art audio. Can you just go back to that view, because there was something there that viewers of this channel will be very familiar with, and that is the little noodle box. Look now,
can you see the difference though?
Oh yeah, look at that. No wood sides on that one.
No wood sides and no auxiliary inputs.
Oh yeah, look at that.
And MIDI on DIN.
Oh, that's right. They're on breakout cables now.
So yeah, well,
but you have
pleased you spotted that.
Yes,
because a very, very good mate of mine. In fact, I would class. I've got our little duo together called Zena Breakdown. Is Jason Hotchkiss, and Jason is responsible for obviously the Noodle Box, which your viewers will be very familiar with.
Yeah,
which is his latest little thing. But also, you can perhaps just see here, tucked under the modular, CVOCD over there. And then I've a banana split, which is his MIDI splitter. I've got 2 of those in the room. And he just makes some absolutely incredible little boxes. I mean, they're really, really great things. Just so well thought through, little utilities.
Yeah.
And... like a MIDI splitter, a 6-way MIDI splitter. Yes, great. And then you look at the price, you think, what? How can that be a 6-way MIDI splitter for so little money? It's amazing. So Jason's little company is 64 Pixels. I think it's 64pix.com. And he does some great stuff. And of course, the Noodle Box is his latest thing. But this particular one is a prototype. I think there were 3 of these ones that he made. And... I was really privileged because he said, "Oh, Chris, would you do a bit of testing on it for me?" So I got it, and I started having a good look at kind of the MIDI side of things. I was kind of more preoccupied with MIDI at the time because that was kind of pre-modular days for me. But I got it out again recently, and I've got it plugged into. Oh yeah, this is the most recent thing in the room. This. Basimilus Iteratus Alter noise engineering module, and I have to say the combo of the Noodle Box with this wee fellow here is just incredible.
Can we hear it?
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, Jason, check his stuff out. He does some amazing stuff.
Can we hear that? What's it called? The bacilli?
Well, oddly enough, you say yeah. This is just something I was just noodling around. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but apparently I came up with a name for the Noodle Box.
How cool is that?
I don't remember this. We were a few pints in. Yeah, we were a few pints in at the pub.
Wow.
I said, oh, well, he said, I just want something for people to noodle around on. I was like, well, what about a Noodle Box? So there you go. So this is a little sequence, and I believe, let's see, I've got 3 sequences on it. The whole purpose to this box is it's 4 independent CV gate sequences. I mean, again, obviously a lot of your people, a lot of your viewers would have probably seen this already and know a little bit about it. But I'm just running that into the Basimilus here, and this thing's quite amazing as well.
Wow.
So, I mean, you can just kind of do a bit of stuff here, but then if I go back here and just kind of mute parts out, let's see. Oh, let's come back. Let's mute out part 3. Just start to play around with it. Oh, I mean, I could go for hours, kind of, I suppose, trying to explain this, but it's just a really, really neat sequencer. I mean, if we have a look at my little module here, there were 2 things that made me buy this. This morphogene. I saw it and thought, yeah, gonna have that. So I bought that before I had a case, of course. And then I thought, okay, I've got a case. I bought this case just tucked under here. You can just see with the Artifon and the Hades in there.
Yeah.
And of course, that soon ran out of space. So then I thought, okay, get the 6U. And then, of course, Dave Rossum started doing some stuff as well. And my God, that was the next must-have,
Yeah.
which is the Ross and Pan Harmonium. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh, I've heard about it.
That's a resynthesizer.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it is absolutely stunning what that thing can do. I mean, I've got a little sample running through it
Go on
here,
then.
but here is a...
Go
Actually,
here.
let's just turn the dry. There we go, nice little break there. So what's happening now is that audio's going in here, and it's running a fast Fourier transfer. It's just calculating it, splitting it into 33 oscillators, which I've just set to the sine oscillators here. And how can I do this? Oh, no, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna have to turn the wet up, aren't I? So I'll just turn the wet up, but now there's that break running through 33 sine waves. Now it sounds to me, maybe sounds a little bit like a bad phone line, but actually you can do a heck of a lot with this stuff. So if I start to play around with some of the controls here as well, let's just get it nice and melty.
Nice and melty. Yes.
It is absolutely stunning. And then I started falling in love with Dave Rossum stuff, and then the assimilator, the sampler, which I think is probably the most powerful sampler I've ever used anyway.
Oh, really?
Stunning thing. And so, but thankfully, now, if I just go over here, there's one U. There's only one U left.
Same as mine.
I've got these cables covering it, so I don't even see it. So I'm done. I've done it. So I've got there, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah. But that, I mean, the noodle box, back to the noodle box, that I didn't have a sequencer in here. And I was thinking, well, I've got the zero control here, obviously a no coast as well. They're lovely things. But this has opened up a lot more possibilities for me for the modular. So that's been a really big addition for me.
That is cool.
May I talk a little about this thing as well, this weird box?
Yeah, what is it?
Exactly, what's that? Well, actually, have you seen these before? The V-Heister.
No.
It's a little thing made by a guy called Synth in Poland, and that's just basically a really quite clever molten splitter and all kinds of things. You can kind of configure it to be a multiple, configure it to be a splitter, a merger as well. Really useful little box.
3.5mm mono jacks.
And he also makes a little mixer. No, I think they're all stereo actually.
Oh, stereo jacks.
Am I right? I can't remember now. That's a good question, Gaz. I can't remember. Stereo. No, it's a stereo. Stereo mixer multiple. Yeah. So it's stereo. It does do stereo stuff as well. They're really useful. I was scratching my head quite a bit, to be honest, to kind of work it out, because it's so, it's like a multiple, which should be the simplest of modules, but it's quite complex, that thing. But it's really useful. Anyway, he makes a little mixer and that looks just like this. So his mixer is a 4-in, obviously 1-out mixer, 4-channel mixer. Now I met him, I was over in Poznan doing some work, and I met the guy who makes it, and I said, this is brilliant, but what about if you did one that had 1 input and 4 outputs? It's like, what do you want that for? Why would you want something that gives you 1 input and 4 outputs? So I said, well, my trusty Allen and Heath here has got 4 auxiliaries, but I've got a few more effects than just 4. So this can be an auxiliary expander.
Yeah.
So basically, he sort of scratched his head and said, I think I could make that. And he went away and he made this little thing. I can't remember what he calls it. The 4-mul, as in 4 multiple. Portable active splitter. So yeah, it's a little amplifier based splitter. And I send it 1 channel out. In fact, it's this 3rd channel here. And then I've got additional auxiliary pots, which I send out to the Strymons over here. So that, I was really pleased about that. There's not that many of these around, I don't think. But it's a really neat little kind of backwards mixer.
I like the way you talked about. I like the way you talked about the Strymons. Then it's like a little family, the Strymons who live up on the hill over there.
Oh yeah, of course, the trio, the golden triangle up there.
Yeah.
I started off with the Big Sky. No, I started off with the Timeline. I thought I loved that, and then I thought, oh well, yeah, the Big Sky. I was thinking Eventide, thinking, what else could there be? But the Big Sky kind of was just And these, they're studio effects processors in my opinion. The guitar pedals, but they're just, they're as strong as studio effects processors.
Yeah.
And the last one I got was the Mobius. I wanted a little bit of nice bit of modulation stuff. And right next to it there is my Kraut Rock phaser that I built.
Very nice.
That's something I'm really into. I'm really into DIY stuff. I do a lot of kind of soldering here and there. And that was a little circuit board I found by a chap called Jay Heibel. Unfortunately, he's passed away, I'm afraid, but his legacy's still there. And, you know, if you like your Noy and Can and those sorts of bands, then you've got to have this. It's a clone of the Schulte Compact A. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's it. So that was a self-build. Then above that, oh God, yeah, my arm's getting tired holding this now. I've got too much stuff, haven't I? But the Lep Loop, I adore this thing.
It's not
amazing.
Le Ploup, then.
Again, it's made by a chap over, well, two chaps.
It is
No, not Le Loop. It's not Le Ploup. No, it's Le Ploup. Yeah, at least that's what Tony calls it. Yeah. Tony calls it the Lep Loop, I think.
I think it is Lep Loop.
But yeah, Tony's become a mate now. He's based over in Milan.
Oh, nice.
I say Lep Loop.
Lep Loop.
But yeah, actually, the producer Kink, kind of turned me on to that just from a video he did where he said this is a secret weapon. And at which point I was like, well, if it's good enough for him, for a secret weapon for him, then I'm going to look into it. And yeah,
is no secret no more.
And exactly. But yeah, Tony's become a good mate, the guy who makes it. And he's done a little mod for me there. He's given me a little fine tuning for the oscillators, which it really needed. So yeah. But yeah, love that thing. And of course, there's the SH. Oh, yes. But then if I move the panoramic view around, there it is. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, with absolutely no patched up kind of thing going on at the minute. But there it is. There's the 2600, the orange one, late 70s. Yeah.
It's a lovely
I've got to show you this as well. I told you I like my DIY stuff. So there's my hand-built in Brighton by Calc Lyra. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to make. And if you know the 64 pixel stuff, you probably recognise the style of box that it comes in, which is again one of Jason's kind of acrylic boxes. He made that.
Okay,
neat. Helped me make that.
So, so we noticed, I think, in the orange. Oh, the Sherman Rodec. I had a Sherman filter
the
bank.
Restyler, yeah.
That's the Restyler.
Okay, well, filter bank's under here. There's the filter bank, there's the Rodec Restyler, which is a little bit of a secret. Again, another unsung one, but I think that's nicer than the filter bank personally. I find that a lot more musical than the filter bank.
Oh, that's a cool layout.
I'm not the first person to say the filter bank is quite an unwieldy beast. I'd say it's more of a distortion than a filter.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, of course, that old orange chestnut.
Yes. Let's just pause here for a moment on the Pulsar 23. Now, how on earth you get on with it? Is it a love affair?
I think it's whatever you want it to be. If you want it to be basic, it can be basic. If you want it to really mess with the fabric of time, it can do that. It's just one of Vlad's sort of strokes of genius, to be perfectly honest. It's like a neural network, but also it's a drum machine as well. I mean, I've heard Nick Batt say a few times it's kind of like it's his most kind of, what's the word? It's kind of his most his least unusual kind of device, I guess. And I think there's a fair amount to say about that. But yeah, this drum machine, I mean, I'm just really kind of getting used to it. But I'm not finding it difficult. I found it fairly straightforward to work with.
Yeah.
The most awkward thing I've found on this is clocking it via MIDI.
Yeah.
Vlad had some kind of his own, let's say, idiosyncratic ideas about how to have it clocked. It doesn't react to start-stop messages. So if you plug a MIDI clock into it, it will always be playing, regardless of your sequencers running or not. So that becomes a bit of a problem. However, Mr. Noodlebox is the answer for me.
Okay.
And actually, not many people will have seen this, but if I go to my layer mode here, this is where I'm getting super geeky because I'm going into specific values in parameters.
Yeah.
I spoke to Jason and said, look, the Pulsar clocks from 32 pulses. Your clocks only go up to 16. Could you put 32 in? So on Sunday we went and had a bit of a picnic in the park, and then he came home and said, "Right, I've done it."
Yes,
the firmware with 32 pulses.
That's what we want.
Yeah,
great.
Exactly. So now this will do run start stop from MIDI but I take the analog clock out, plonk it into here on the pulsar, and then join that into the clock here. So I've now got a super tight MIDI clock, well, kind of MIDI analog combination. That's really nice. So yeah, and also I've got to show you directly under my newest drum machine is my oldest drum machine.
Look at that.
So there's a Bentley Rhythm
Rhythm
Ace, which was the TR-77 before it was the TR-77. This was the last of the Rhythm Ace. Rhythm Ace was Roland before Roland in Europe. Ace Tone, I think, was the name of the company.
Didn't know
that.
that.
The Japanese one? I can't remember. Alex Ball, who again lives around the corner from me, which is a nice thing to find out. He'll tell you everything you ever need to know about these things.
Gosh.
But yeah, so that's my Bentley Rhythm Ace.
Alex Ball is on fire, isn't he? He's just got. I can't believe.
He's amazing.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
What an asset for us all.
He's amazing. Yeah, I was really surprised. I was at a mate's wedding actually, Danny from work, and there's a guy there from Roland who knew Alex and said, "Oh, you know, Alex is down in Brighton as well." So I got in touch with him. We'd never spoke, but I got in touch with him, and turns out he's literally round the corner from me. So,
Cool.
So I popped round, had a cup of coffee, had a good look round his place as well. But yeah, what a top bloke.
Yeah, superb.
So yeah, and then I guess I've got to show you this, Gaz, because I know you'll like this one. There we go.
There it is. Oh, I have a love
There it
affair with
is.
that thing.
Now I have to say, Dreadbox stuff.
Yeah.
Dreadbox stuff is stunning. I mean, Yanis is doing great things,
Yes.
really great things.
Yeah.
And that I think is probably one of the best sounding instruments. One of the best sounding instruments I've played on. I think stunning.
What I particularly like about it is that it's it's certainly not a jack of all trades. Let's call it that. It's quite a specific thing.
No, you're right.
It's quite a specific thing, and I mean, it's perfect for my nightmare ambience genre. You know, it's just perfect.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Yeah, no, I think it's just, I don't know, there's something about the way he gets oscillators to I don't know, it's just, these oscillators are incredible.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
But also his approach to effects as well. I mean, he's doing stuff that's just like, it's unusual, but it works.
He puts some rock,
I genuinely love that.
He puts some rock and roll. He puts some rock and roll into things, I think. Like, there's a rock and roll quality to him.
Well, I mean, he's a rock and roller, isn't he? I mean, well, not literally kind of, Buddy Holly style, but you know, he's kind of that's his background was kind of rock, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he got into building guitar pedals, I think.
Yeah. So I reckon a bit of that kind of rock energy.
Taught himself how to do electronics.
A bit of that rock energy kind of carries through Dreadbox, I think.
Say again, sorry, Gaz.
The rock energy carries through Dreadbox.
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And again, he's an absolutely top bloke, is Yanis. I love him to bits.
Yeah.
So yeah. Just a quick one on the top shelf here.
Yay.
We've got the FBO1, which I don't know if that works anymore. I think it should do. And the old TR-08 as well. For many years, I lusted after a real one.
Yeah.
I just thought I can't justify that money for a real one. No. And you know what? In reality, this doesn't sound quite as good, but it does what it needs to do. It's an 808. But the good thing about this is that there are additional controls. So I've made a mapping on the SL. So all of a sudden you've got the 808 kick and you can pitch it. I can make pitchy bass drum tracks with it, which is great. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've got to show you this. A lot of people kind of, what the bloody hell have you done? Look. But look, there's my Nord Drum 3P, but where's the P gone? Yeah. I'm not interested in pads, personally. I'm just not kind of interested in that. I was certainly not with this, I wasn't. And I just wanted it as a really nice drum voice. So, yeah, I got my mate with an angle grinder.
Oh, my goodness.
Commit the ultimate sacrilege, I think.
Whoa.
And, we took the pads off. But it all still works. There's nothing wrong. I just had to desolder the pads from it. And then,
God.
So, yeah, but it's a much neater option for me. I kind of prefer that.
Yeah.
And then my first ever synth.
Oh,
that was from my gran in Oxford. I was about 5.
Which one is it?
I think that's my sister's next to it as well. She got one.
Yeah.
And and then the ARP sequencer, which was another one of the DIY things that I did. I got a circuit board for that and built that up.
Oh wow!
Which
really?
Is nice.
Gosh.
So yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Nice.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here, and as you can imagine, hang on, let's just go back. As you can imagine, it gets incredibly warm.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, what is it? It's 25 degrees. It will get warmer, especially with all the power supplies are on. So last week, this is probably one of my favourite things in the room. Oh, the aircon.
A rare sighting. A rare sighting in the UK.
Exactly, that's it. I thought, you know what? I mean, oh, right. So, you do your podcasts and I do mine as well. And I keep saying podcasts, they're live streams, aren't they? Podcasts are something different. But I did one time for Novation, and I can't remember which one it was. I think it was, oh, I don't know. It was one of the podcasts, one of the live streams that I was doing. And at one point, I thought I'm going to faint. I nearly went twice whilst I was doing the stream.
Yeah.
And of course, if I go while that stream's running, then I'll have a look at this camera. Yeah, if I go when that stream's running, this room I've had it kind of acoustically sealed. Pascal, my wife isn't going to know. I'm just going to be we'd be one of those kind of public patting ons.
Oh no.
Yeah, the live stream would be stuck, just keep running. There'd be nobody to hit end stream. And I got the temperature, I got the thermometer out after I did that stream, and it was 37 degrees in here. And it was just too much. So at that point, I vowed that I would buy aircon. Because I think even in winter, even when it's not warm outside, there's enough heat being generated by all the gear in this room.
Yes.
That's just going to,
I have a similar thing.
Yeah.
I can turn off all different sections of my studio, so I can. I've got things in little groupings.
That's it.
So I just turn on.
I could do with a
bits.
power isolation switch, because you're right. I've got to get on my hands and knees every night, get under this desk, and turn everything off.
Yeah.
It would be so nice if I was just had the ability to. Just have an isolation switch and just power it off.
Just wondering about time. We've got a really healthy, nice audience. 156 currently watching, which is lovely. Thank you, thank you, folks, for joining. Also, thank you for sticking with us when we had some technical issues earlier. Hopefully, it's all good. Well, I wondered whether we could try something, and I wondered whether.
Okay.
I wondered whether I can play my Glock. And if you can play some synth, and we can actually, even though we won't be fully in sync, we will kind of. But the weird thing is that the effects that I'm plugged into, so are you. Because I've tapped a signal. I tapped a signal out from the stereo effects, and I've got them bypassed. That's how I'm getting your sound into this. It was an emergency process. However, that means if our effects are merging, I think it'd be quite nice. So, may we use the key of D Dorian, please?
Yep. Gotcha. All the white notes starting on a D.
All the white notes starting on a D. You could call it that. That's
That's how I remember that one.
Now, your voice. So now what you do and what I do are going to merge in the effects together. So I'm going to take my mic out. Okay. So if you don't talk for a moment, and then we'll just go into like an ambient. I'll try not to bring too much nightmare.
Sounds good. Now I'm gonna say, Gaz, I don't have a patch prepared, so I'm just gonna start from an initialized patch here on the summit, if that's all right.
That's how I want you to do it.
And I'll build it up from there, if that works for you.
That works for me, and I'm sure it'll work for everybody else.
Excellent.
Interesting. All right then, let's do this.
Okay. Oh, great! So I've got my voice coming.
Coming back down to earth.
Do we have to?
No. I'm just checking in. This is kind of bizarre. I like because all of the sounds, any kind of creaks and sort of any noises are kind of going into the effects. Sort of like my chair creaking is kind of being picked up by the mics and which is kind of nice.
That's true ambience, though, isn't it? I mean, that's what ambience should be.
Yeah, eating.
Yeah, that was a good fun. I enjoyed that, guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking, though, sadly, I am going to call time, partly because I haven't had anything to eat since midday, and I really need to eat something.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us, for sticking with us. Yes, again, apologies for earlier, little technical hitch. I do realise now the error in my ways. But big thank you, Chris, for joining us today. It's been lots and lots of fun, and
my pleasure.
And we must do it in the future as well. Definitely want to invest.
I would absolutely love to, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had getting stereo across seems to be a little bit problematic, but that's definitely something in future shows we will have stereo, and hopefully, if everything is that's promised is true, proper future jamming in real time jamming.
Yeah. I think that looks amazing, doesn't it? I think you put me onto that stuff. The Aloha is there.
So, yeah.
I mean, that looks like it's going to be amazing.
Wow!
But down to that stereo thing, I'm just going to quickly show this because you see here, I've got my Summit connected, and I've actually got this into a really weird stereo configuration that just opens up loads of amazing stereo stuff with it. So the Summit is bitimbral.
Yes.
So if you go to a multi-mode and basically have the same patch on part A and then the same patch on part B, but in your settings use the two sets of outputs, then you can basically have two different synths that are producing exactly the same sound but coming out completely independently, and that's just such a nice way to really push the stereo aspect of the Summit. I made a little video on that on my YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago. And if you're interested in using Summit in a stereo way, I would highly recommend watching that because it's really, really powerful. So it just opens up a lot of sound possibilities with it.
How will people find that YouTube
the fact
channel?
That we didn't have stereo.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
How will people find your YouTube channel? Is it Calc? What's the way for people to find it?
Yeah, now this is an awkward one because my actual YouTube channel, unfortunately, has got an old name and somebody had already got Calc. So let's see, somebody had already grabbed that as a name. So I think it's BoxKid9, the channel.
Okay.
But if you search for Calc and Novation, basically, yeah, if you search for Calc and Novation, then you'll probably see it. I mean, I've got this, yeah, you'll see anything with a bit of Calc. If it's got the name Calc written on it, that's likely to be one of my tracks.
Okay.
And the YouTube thing, I mean, I do a few tutorials here and there, but really it's just basically, it's almost like I treat it as my little storage space for videos that I make of music. And yeah, I just kind of like to put as much music as I can up on there, really.
Fantastic.
So yeah, you can have a listen to the sort of stuff that I do there. But yeah, there's the odd kind of little tutorial, and there's that stereo, what's it called? Summit Bitimbral Stereo Experiments. And that'll give you a little kind of, a little link into, into what I was doing with the stereo stuff. Although we couldn't hear it in stereo, unfortunately.
No, but
but never mind.
We will fix these gremlins as we go on. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been loads of fun having you on here. And
I've had an absolute blast, Gaz. It's always a pleasure to see you and to get a chance to hang out with you. So thank you very much for asking me on.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thanks to everybody who kind of who decided to kind of to stick around after the OBS Zoom nightmare that we had. I didn't mention, but literally 5 minutes before we were due to start, originally 8 o'clock, my router completely died.
Oh no!
And I thought, oh god, that's it. So but I realised I think it had got itself slightly unplugged as my wife was plugging in the baby monitor. So it's so
I think
so thankfully found the problem there.
What made my system unstable, I believe, is if we were to just jump out to here, is I've got two monitor screens. I've got like a 4K screen and a normal screen, and there's some weird thing about it scaling wrong, and then it kind of just fully crashed. So
it was
yes.
The gods were against us at the beginning, Gaz, but you and I, the two hirsute chaps. We wafted our beards in the way of the gods, and made it work. So it was all good.
Okay. Well, I shall say thank you very much for everybody joining, and we will. Well, I'll be back next week at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, I should say, and I'm going to see what to do now. Whether to kind of try and join up because I think there's different videos now on YouTube from the same show because of the crash, but. I've not had it crash before, but anyway, okay, that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. We're going offline now, and see you soon.